The desert sun scorched the cracked earth, turning the air into a shimmering haze that clung to everything. Private First Class Sarah Doc Callahan knelt beside a wounded soldier, her hand steady as she pressed a bandage against the gushing wound in his leg. Blood soaked her gloves, her uniform, her soul. She was 24, a combat medic, trained to save lives in the chaos of war, not to take them. But the screams of her squad echoed around her, gunfire snapping like a whip through the arid valley. The ambush had come out of nowhere, a storm of bullets and chaos. Her heart pounded, not with fear, but with a fire she didn't yet understand. This wasn't supposed to be her fight. They'd told her, medics don't fight. But today, the war didn't care. Hey, if you're gripped by this story already, hit that subscribe button and join us for more epic tales like this. O'Neill. Let's dive into Sarah's story together. Sarah had always been the quiet one, the girl from a small Ohio town who wanted to help people. She wasn't built for glory or bloodshed. She joined the army to heal, to stitch the broken back together. Her father, a Vietnam vet, had warned her about war's cruelty, but she'd smiled and said, "I'm just saving lives, Dad." Basic training had been tough, but she excelled in medical drills, earning her nickname Doc with a mix of pride and grit. Her squad loved her as she was their lifeline, the one who'd run through hell to drag them to safety. But in the barracks, the whispers followed her. "Medics don't fight," her sergeant had said during training, his voice firm, almost dismissive. "Your job is to patch us up, Callahan, not to play hero." She nodded, swallowing the sting, believing her role was enough. Until now, the convoy had been routine, a supply run through a remote Afghan valley. Sarah rode in the second Humvee, her medical kit strapped to her back, her eyes scanning the horizon for threats she wasn't supposed to engage. The squad joked to keep the tension at by Corporal Ramirez cracking wise about his mom's tamales, Lieutenant Hayes humming an old country tune. Then the world exploded. An eye dripped through the lead vehicle, sending shrapnel and screams into the air. Before Sarah could process it, gunfire erupted from the cliffs above. Insurgents, dozens of them, had been waiting, their silhouettes dark against the sun. The squad scrambled for cover, but the enemy was relentless, their bullets chewing through metal and flesh. Sarah's training kicked in. She sprinted to the nearest casualty, Private Ellis, dragging him behind a rock as bullets kicked up dirt around her. "Stay with me, Ellis," she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. His face was paled, his chest heaving as blood pooled beneath him. She worked fast, tying a tourniquet, injecting morphine, whispering, "You're gonna be okay." But the gunfire grew closer, the enemy tightening their trap. Ramirez was hit next, a bullet tearing through his shoulder. Sarah ran to him, her body low, her mind racing. She patched him up, but the squad was pinned down, outgunned, and outnumbered. Lieutenant Hayes barked orders, but his voice was drowned out by the crack of rifles. Sarah's eyes darted to the cliffs, a movement, shadows, the glint of a sniper's scope. They were losing fast. Then she saw it, the rifle, lying next to a fallen soldier, its barrel glinting in the sun. Her hands froze on Ramirez's bandage. "Medics don't fight," the sergeant's voice echoed in her head. But the screams of her squad, her family, drowned it out. She wasn't just a medic today, she was a soldier. Her fingers closed around the rifle's grip, the weight foreign but alive in her hands. She didn't know if she could do this, but she knew she had to. The insurgents were closing in, their shouts growing louder, their bullets relentless. Sarah's heart thundered, but something inside her snapped into focus. She wasn't running anymore. She crawled to a better position, her knees scraping against the jagged rocks. The rifle felt heavy, awkward, nothing like the medical tools she knew. She'd trained with it, sure, but only enough to pass basic. Now, it was her lifeline. She peered through the scope, her breath shallow, and spotted an insurgent aiming at Hayes. Her finger hesitated on the trigger. "Medics don't fight," she whispered to herself, but the words felt hollow. She squeezed. The rifle kicked against her shoulder, and the insurgent dropped. For a moment, the world went silent. She'd done it. She'd crossed the line. The squad noticed. Ramirez, clutching his shoulder, stared at her, wide-eyed. "Doc, what the hell?" he gasped, but there was no time for questions. Sarah fired again, then again, each shot more certain than the last. She wasn't a sharpshooter, but she didn't need to be. She just needed to buy time, to keep her squad alive. The insurgents faltered. Surprised by the new resistance, Hayes rallied the squad, his voice booming now. "Push forward. We've got a chance." Sarah kept firing, her hands steady, her mind a blur of instinct and adrenaline. She wasn't thinking about rules anymore. She was thinking about survival. But the ambush wasn't over. The insurgents regrouped, their numbers swelling as reinforcements poured from the cliffs. Sarah's squad was still pinned, their ammo running low. She saw it before anyone else. A rocket launcher, aimed at their position. Her stomach dropped. If that hit, they were done. She didn't think. She just moved, sprinting across open ground, bullets zipping past her. She dove for the launcher of a fallen insurgent. Her hands shook as she figured it out, the weight of the weapon foreign and terrifying. She aimed, prayed, and fired. The rocket streaked across the valley, exploding into the cliff where the enemy was massing. The blast sent rocks and bodies tumbling, buying the squad precious seconds. Hayes screamed for a retreat, and Sarah helped drag the wounded to the remaining Humvee. She fired one-handed as she pulled Ellis to safety, her body screaming with exhaustion. The vehicle roared to life, speeding out of the kill zone as the insurgents' fire faded behind them. Sarah collapsed against the seat, the rifle still in her hands, her chest heaving. Blood and dirt coated her face, but her eyes burned with something new: pride, defiance, maybe even rage. She'd saved them, not just with bandages, but with bullets. Back at base, the aftermath was a blur. The squad was patched up, the dead counted, the reports filed. Sarah sat alone in the medic tent, staring at her blood-stained hands. She'd broken every rule she'd been taught, crossed a line she never thought she would. Hayes found her there, his arm in a sling. "You saved us, Doc," he said, his voice low but firm. "I don't care what they say about medics. You're a soldier." She nodded, but the weight of his words didn't lift the heaviness in her chest. She'd saved lives, yes, but she'd taken them too. The girl from Ohio wasn't sure who she was anymore. Word of her actions spread. Some called her a hero, others whispered about protocol, about medics who stepped out of line. The sergeant who dismissed her stood silent when she passed, his eyes avoiding hers. But Sarah didn't care. She'd done what she had to. Months later, she stood in a dusty ceremony, a bronze star pinned to her chest. The citation praised her courage, her quick thinking, her refusal to let her squad die. But as she stood there, the cheers felt distant. She was thinking of the rifle, the weight of it, the lives it took, the lives it saved. She was thinking of the girl she used to be. Sarah returned home to Ohio, but the war followed her. Nightmares of the ambush woke her, the crack of gunfire echoing in her dreams. She'd visit her father's grave, telling him stories of the valley, of the day she became more than a medic. She found peace in helping others, volunteering at a local clinic, teaching kids about resilience. But the rifle never left her mind. It was a symbol of the choice she'd made, the line she'd crossed. She wasn't just Doc anymore. She was something else, something stronger. Years later, Sarah stood before a group of new recruits, her voice steady as she told her story. "They'll tell you medics don't fight," she said, her eyes fierce. "But when the world's burning, you do what it takes to save your family." The recruits stared, captivated, some inspired, some afraid. She didn't sugarcoat it. War wasn't a movie. It was blood and choices and scars that never faded. But it was also about love. You love for the people beside you, love that made you pick up a rifle when the world said you shouldn't. The story of Sarah Callahan spread beyond the base, beyond Ohio, carried by those who heard it. It wasn't just about an ambush or a medic who fought. It was about a woman who redefined what it meant to save a life. It was about courage that didn't fit in a rulebook, about a fire that burned brighter than fear. And somewhere, in a quiet moment, Sarah would look at the bronze star on her shelf and remember the valley, the rifle, the lives she'd saved, and not just with medicine, but with her will to fight. Hey, that's Sarah's story, and I hope it hit you as hard as it hit me. From which part of the country are you watching this video? Drop it in the comments below, and let's keep the story alive together.